What's up, everybody, and what better way to wrap up your work week, at least if that's what you're doing at this point in time here late on a Friday, than with the Slate, brought to you by our friends at DraftKings and has partnered with all of our friends at DK. That's where we're from. You're here for the right reasons. Thanks for being with us. I'm Adam Kaufman. We have got Steve Buchanan, Matt LaMarca, and a whole lot to get into. Football a little bit down the line. We'll start off with some baseball as well. But my friends, how are you? Bukes, how are you? I haven't seen you smile yet.
What's different about that?
I want to. I figured maybe you're happy. It's late on a Friday. I don't know how you're working Sunday. Maybe you're a little light on your day Saturday. You can sort of rally into the weekend.
I don't have any days off, Kaufman. I have like 19 projects that I'm involved in.
Good.
There is no break. If you want to see me smile, look at my high school yearbook.
Okay. Or during your MLB Network hits. How are you there, LaMarca?
I'm wonderful. Feeling refreshed after my sojourner this weekend. Is that the proper use of that word?
Sure. Go with it.
Yeah,
there are no intellectuals around here.
Used up all my cell phone data working in the car, so that was fun. But
who doesn't have unlimited data?
I was just gonna say, people have limited data still in 2021.
Every dollar matters around here, boys. Okay.
That's wild.
That's great.
I've never had a problem before.
Well, now you did.
Yeah,
no, you do have a problem now.
Don't shame me.
The unlimited data, friend.
I'm not shaming you. I'm just
point.
pointing out that you're poor.
LaMarca, who's in your 5?
It's the same as my my MySpace top 5.
Oh, okay. Good. No, good call. Bukes. First time opportunity for us to connect, at least on air here. Obviously we've talked, we've seen one another even, but doing this show first time since we did our last show back on Friday of last week, when at the time the Red Sox were down 1-0 to the Rays, and now, wouldn't you know, getting ready for the Houston Astros tonight, game 1 of the ALCS.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Rays were the better team. They still are the better team. Okay. Like, unlike you, I can take my homer hat off and actually, analyze, even if my home team is involved.
Sure. I mean, I predicted that they would lose game 1 and then win the next 3, which happened, but yeah, homer hat.
Hey, listen, are you going to let me answer your question, or are you just going to keep interrupting? Okay. So the Red Sox got hot at the right time. Really, after Colin McHugh and Michael Wacha came out of that bullpen in game 2, that was it. It was kind of curtains after that. Even Randy Arozarena and all the things that he does in the playoffs couldn't stop this Red Sox team. But they have a major problem coming into this series with the Astros, and that's that bullpen that really kind of pushed them into this series is a fake bullpen. They were using their starters out of the bullpen, and that's what really saved them, like Nick Pivetta and whatnot. They're not going to have that luxury in this series. Now, I like them to win this series because losing Lance McCullers for the Astros is a huge loss. It is a huge loss. This is not the Astros team that has, the ace after ace like we've seen in years past. It's like Greinke, Luis Garcia, Framber Valdez, not exactly great pitching. So I like the Red Sox to win this series, plus 125. You can get that at right now. But if you asked me who the better team was in the ALDS, it was absolutely the Rays.
LaMarca, are you surprised by the way that series wound up? Not, I don't care about the number of games it took, that sort of thing, but just the fact the Red Sox are a team that we're still talking about here in mid-October.
Yeah, I definitely had the Rays winning that series, but that's the beauty of playoff baseball, right? Anything can happen. It's a very sort of wonky sport, especially now, with the pitching. I don't want to say that pitching doesn't matter anymore, but starting pitching really doesn't matter. Every team is getting 6+ innings out of their bullpen every single game. So it has really sort of negated the gap between the favorite and the underdog, in my opinion.
Well, I think where pitching matters, to your point, it's not necessarily starting pitching, but it's pitching depth, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's
a fair point.
What does matter.
And clearly, I think we all have to take a step back and I don't want to say applaud Alex Cora, but we have to kind of give that man his due, right? Like, this is just kind of proof that managing does matter a little bit, as much as people like me like to sit back and say I could do a better job managing the Mets than their current manager did. Well, they don't have a current manager. Their previous manager did. But he really has made like a bit of a difference. So yeah, that was a takeaway. And then the Rays aren't going away. Like, I think it's for, it feels disappointing that the Rays have lost, but remember, Wander Franco's like 13 years old, I think. Potentially they'll get back Glasnow, in the near future. They've got other prospects that are going to come up. Like, I think the window on the Rays is open. We know that with their payroll, they don't keep the window open very long. Eventually they have to make decisions, ship guys out. But I think they've got a nice window here coming up where I will bet that they win a title with Wander Franco before he inevitably signs a 15-year, $335 billion contract with the Dodgers.
Because I do think, to LaMarca's point, as far as like the value of a manager, we talk about it in baseball all the time. Like, hey, how good is a good manager for you in a regular season sense? And I think most people will say, the difference between a good manager and an average manager is like 5 wins during the regular season out of, 162. It's not this giant number. That being said, at least as it relates to these Red Sox, obviously you can look at what happened during the pandemic shortened year under Ron Renneke after they'd had Alex Cora and they won the World Series in 18. They took a step back in 19, still were a mediocre team. They weren't a bad team. They were a bad team in 2020 under Renneke, when most guys on that team, key guys, if not, most everyone in general, had like career worst seasons. They were just downright putrid across the board. They rebound. Clearly, people talk about it. Clearly, there's a connection between Alex Cora and, Spanish-speaking members of this team, whether it's obviously Bogarts and Devers and Martinez and so on. Like, there's a buy-in, there's a relationship, there's a connection there that, Ron Renneke did not have with a lot of these guys. Even still, do I think that vaults you from a mediocre team to a 90-plus win team? Maybe, maybe not. What we just saw from the Red Sox during the regular season was impressive compared to sportsbook standards coming into the year when the number was like 80.5, something like that. That said, I do think managing matters in the playoffs. And I think, whereas you could make the case as a very even series entering this best of 7, Houston and Boston, strengths, weaknesses, and so on, I give the Red Sox a managerial edge over Dusty Baker. What about you?
What kind of question is this? This is a weird question.
Well, if we're talking about whether or not managing matters in Major League Baseball come the postseason, that's the question. Do you think it matters? Do you think the Red Sox have an edge in that department?
I guess.
I just don't know if it's one of those things that's hard to quantify, right?
I don't think it's that weird a question. I realize it's not a question that you can sit here and, implement in your DFS lineup or, necessarily bet money on, but I don't think it's a weird question.
I don't like this question.
All right, fine. I'll tell you what, Bukes, let me ask you a different question. It's maybe a little more in tune to what you were saying before about the pitching. You were talking about how when you were first talking about with Chris Sale ultimately starting game 1, which surprised a lot of people, Nate Eovaldi's going to go in game 2 tomorrow, how like the Red Sox can't keep going the way they were going against the Rays with starting pitchers effectively, or at least regular season starting pitchers coming out and playing key roles out of your bullpen in this series. My question to you is, why not? I mean, it's what they did in 2018 to win the World Series. It's like you said, it's what we saw against the Rays. You're still going to have Pivetta. You're still going to have Houck. You're still going to have Martin Perez. All these guys are coming out of the bullpen. I think Cora is going to continue to lean on these guys.
A collection of studs right there.
I didn't even say that, but I'm saying these are, as opposed to like the, Braziers of the world, guys, like you're going to get your Whitlocks and you're going to get like some of those guys that actually are dependable. But I think you're going to continue to see a lot of these guys.
Yes, most likely. I mean, for the, anybody who's a Red Sox fan, they would hope they don't see Martin Perez again come out of that bullpen. If, he's coming out of the bullpen, make sure to lock that bullpen because you don't want to let him out. unless you don't want to plan on winning that game. I mean, they needed to do what they did in that divisional series because their backs were up against the wall quickly. So they had to, use some of those guys, and they weren't I mean, one thing that's been consistent through the playoffs is that the hook has been quicker than ever on these starting pitchers. I mean, look at Max Scherzer in what was the game 3 when he was out, like very, very quick. Like Dave Roberts historically always has a quick hook, way quicker than most managers. But like even for Max Scherzer, that was a quick hook with Dave Roberts as a manager. But that's just how it's been in these playoffs so far. And like you're probably going to get that again tonight. Like Chris Sale has made 10 starts since coming back from Tommy John surgery. Hasn't gone more than 5 1/3 inning in all but one of them so far. And even when he went deep into a game, it was 6 innings. What you should be doing as a starter. Valdez has given up 4 runs in 4 of the last 6 starts that he's made. Like these are not guys that are going to go deep. And, going back to that depth thing, this is really a test of who has the better bullpen at this point. And the Red Sox had to put starters in there to get past that because they can't trust their normal relievers. That's just kind of how it's gone here. So that's why I think it's going to be an area of concern for the Red Sox. But quite frankly, this is more of an area of concern for all of baseball because we're seeing it in all of these series.
And I do think that's why maybe this McCullers injury is getting a bit overblown. Like, what are the Astros really losing here? Maybe 8 innings of pitching, 10 if they're lucky. Like they have to replicate 10 innings of pitching. I think they can find a way to do
that. Any questions that you guys have, by all means, get them in. Obviously, for us here in the chat, we're monitoring that. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, everywhere else. Obviously, do you think that everything that we're talking about here? Do you think that played a role? Obviously, in Chris Sale being the game 1 starter. It's you would think like a lot of people were expecting Nate Eovaldi to be the game 1 guy, but Eovaldi, obviously, between the two, is the one that you're more confident in. He's a guy that could more reliably give you that 5-6 innings. Sale was absolutely blown up his last 2 starts. The one start where he gave up 5 runs in 1 inning against the Rays in the DS. Prior to that, his last regular season start in DC was, gave up a couple of runs anyway in just a couple innings of work against the Nationals in what was at the time a very important game, trying to get this team into the playoffs. What are your expectations for him going into this one here tonight? Is he a good play ultimately, or is this just to kind of stagger all those arms that you could pull out of relief?
I want no part of any of this. I'm sorry. Was that for LaMarca, or did I just cut him off?
No, please, go right ahead.
I might have been a little aggressive there. You take
That's
it.
All right. That's all right. I mean, finally we get a good question from Kaufman, so we can answer this.
Oh, good. Good.
Look, I mean, I don't think this is a good spot for either starter. Chris Sale's going up against the Astros, who were the hardest team in the league to strike out. They had the lowest K rate in the league against lefties all throughout the regular season. They were 3rd in hits against lefties all throughout the regular season. They make contact. They don't strike out. And Chris Sale has just not been the guy that we're used to seeing. Like, is he still averaging over a strikeout an inning? Of course. But the Astros are also one of the best teams in the league hitting against his strikeout pitch, which is his slider. So there's a lot of red flags for Chris Sale in this one. And like I mentioned, he hasn't gone more than 5 1/3 inning in the 10 starts that he's made, all but one of those games. And then you have Valdez, who's been struggling really since the calendar turned to September. 4 runs I mentioned over them, and I think it's 4 of his last 6 starts for him. This is not like it's a bad offense with the Red Sox. So you look at this total over 8.5. That would be my favorite bet. I saw that question out in Twitch because we love our Twitch users. So over 8.5 runs for this one. Would have loved to have gotten it at 8. But I was a little lazy this morning, had a lot going on, so I didn't catch 8. 8.5 will do just fine. I'll take the over on that one, but I don't think either starter is going to go past the 5th inning. That means a lot of bullpen, and that probably means a lot of runs in this one.
LaMarca, I recognize that like every year is different, every series is different, blah, 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 blah. But like, even still, track record is something. Chris Sale, for whatever reason, he's one of the great regular season pitchers ever, but in the playoffs, 8 appearances, not all starts, but 8 appearances. Guy has just been terrible. Lifetime in his time in Boston, because he never made the playoffs with the White Sox. He has been a terrible postseason pitcher. Like his ERA, and granted it ballooned with that last outing against the Rays, right, but his ERA in the playoffs is like 19 in his 8 appearances. So are you just not feeling good about him in general with track record being a concern, or is this just independently tonight you don't feel good about him?
I don't care if he had a 0 ERA heading into. Well, maybe I would care if he had a 0 ERA, but
that would be pretty good.
This is just not a spot for Chris Sale. I mean, I think the ceiling for him is about 5 innings. If he can get you through 5, I think the Red Sox would sign up for that right now. If
Celebrating. Yeah.
And, like with the way that the Astros swing the bats against left-handers, the way that they don't strike out, like there's just nowhere near enough ceiling to justify this price tag. I would much rather play Valdez if I was going to play a starting pitcher tonight, but I don't think you necessarily need to play either of them, So, I had a joke all lined up too, by the way, but you kind of threw me into it. Like maybe the Red Sox are really thinking that game 2 is more important, and that's why they're saving Eovaldi. Like that's the only thing I can think of, because it's not like there's really nothing you can point to as to why Chris Sale should be starting game 1.
Well, they talked about giving Eovaldi the extra day of rest.
Okay, sure.
I'm just saying, I'm inclined to agree with you. Like I would think if you're the Red Sox and it sort of goes back to that whole managing conversation, and like anything Alex Cora touches this year seems to, generally speaking, turn to gold. So like, how dare we question Alex Cora? But if you go with Eovaldi in game 1, you can come back with him in game 4. You can come back with him in game 7. You now know going with him in game 2, he may come in on his, quote unquote, like bullpen days or off days or whatever, and give you an inning out of the pen. That's possible. And knowing Cora, we'll probably see that at some point, but you're not going to get 3 starts out of him in this series when before you could. So that is, an interesting kind of, it's like a preemptive second guess.
That's an old school way of thinking. You are never going to see a Madison I shouldn't say never. I don't know if we'll see a Madison Bumgarner type, World Series performance from a starting pitcher anymore. Like you're not going to get a guy going 7 innings in game 1, 7 innings in game 4, and 7 innings in game 7. It's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. You might get 7 innings in game 1, 7 innings in game 5, 3 innings of relief in game 7, something like that. But the line between the starting pitcher and the bullpen is, it's almost gone. Like, I don't know how far away we are from there just not being a starting rotation and just every guy being available to pitch every day.
I'm looking back at well, I guess it was just 3 games in the World Series for Nate Eovaldi in 18. Like everybody talks about Nate Eovaldi in the World Series in 18, obviously, but it was just the 3 games that he appeared in. So it's not like it was all of them. Joe Kelly pitched in like 6 of them or something, but that was, it's a different situation altogether.
All right. Have we hit our Red Sox quota yet? Can we move on?
Well,
apologies to any Astros fans out there that wanted to.
By all means, hit on the other side of this game. Do it. What are you looking at?
I think the Astros, they got caught up in that scandal. Big deal. Very big deal. Not trying to minimize it. We all made fun of them for a little bit, but like clearly this team is very good at baseball. I mean, you look at some of these all-time postseason lists and like they are just lined with Houston Astros current players because they perform at the highest level. You want to talk about, Chris Sale maybe shrinks in the moment in the postseason. The Astros do not have that problem. Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, like this team, in my opinion, is clearly the better team in this series. Whether or not Alex Cora can work some voodoo magic, conjure up Papa Shungo like Stevie Bukes over there, I don't know. But in my eyes, the fact that we can get the Astros at minus 145 to win the series, I think that's kind of a gift.
There it is. There it is. So, I mean, are both of your expectations that Houston wins this series?
No, I think the Red Sox end up winning this series. And I talked about this earlier. You can get them at plus 125 to win the series. I think this series is going to go 7 games, but I think the Red Sox end up beating them in 7. The loss of McCullers is massive. It is absolutely massive because they don't have that guy. That is like their Nathan Eovaldi, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that guy anymore. If the Red Sox didn't have Nathan Eovaldi, would you give them a chance in this series? Probably not. So they just lost their Nathan Eovaldi. Go ahead, Matt.
You guys like Nate Eovaldi's agent? What is going on here?
No, okay, no, whoa. First of all, hold on 1 second, okay?
Please.
There is no homerism in this seat right here, okay? I'm just making a comparison, right? Like if you're comparing the two, like who would be the Astros' best pitcher? Because the Red Sox best pitcher in this series is Nate Eovaldi. The Astros' best pitcher in this series is Lance McCullers. That's the only thing that I'm saying. All right. So don't get snippy with me. All right. I might be, my residence is in Massachusetts. I am far from a homer. All right.
That's
Brendan
fair.
Glasheen, Adam Kaufman, they can't take the homer hat off. They just constantly got to, go and kiss their team. All right. Mm-hmm. This is DraftKings. This is not a Boston based, we're from Boston, but this is not a Boston show. This is a national show. Yep. So keep it national. All right.
Save your snip for over here, LaMarca.
Anyways. So I do like them to win this series because they don't have that guy. They don't have that guy in this series. Like if McCullers was going to be pitching in this series, he'd probably go in game 3, right? So I'd probably give the win to the Astros in that game. Now it's really up in the air. Who are they going to put in there? Jake Odorizzi? Zach Greinke? Those aren't names that you can rely upon, especially in the playoffs. Has Odorizzi even pitched in the playoffs? I don't think he has. So
no, I don't think so.
All things to consider. That's a big loss. And that's why I like the Red Sox in this series.
I
like the Astros.
Fine.
I'm gonna let LaMarca keep going.
Well, here's the thing, Matt LaMarca. If you like the Houston Astros, you can log on the DraftKings Sportsbook and put your money there and say, I like the Astros. Here's $100. I'm going to put that on the Astros because I'm feeling mighty fine about them.
Odorizzi has 5 career playoff innings back in 2019 with the Twins.
Yeah, guy sucks.
Just wanted to let you know. I'm not saying he's a stout
one trip through the rotation in 3 games. That's all we need, baby.
It's just amazing to me with Bukes that anytime you say something good about the local team because you believe it, and even if it turns out to be right, you're a homer automatically.
No. You can say good things about the team, but like with you and Glash, it's like you say something good about the team, and then you're like, oh, it's my Red Sox. Love them so much they can never lose. Like, be real about it. Like, I am.
They can never lose.
I like the Red Sox.
I haven't sat here and say they can't lose this series.
That's how you talk. That's how you and Glash talk. Like they're invincible and like, oh, Alex Cora is the best thing that ever happened since sliced bread. Like he's a good manager, but relax. Like just be real. Be honest.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you work in Boston, but like take the hat off. That's all.
Okay.
That's all I'm asking. Be fair. Be fair. Houston's a very good team. This is a really bad draw for the Red Sox.
Who sat here and said the Astros were a bad team?
You would never know.
Because we've been talking all about the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's all you want to talk about. We haven't barely even talked about Houston.
Good, let's talk about Houston. Let's do it.
Do we have enough time? Do we have enough time?
Oh, I don't know. We got about 25 more minutes.
All right, let's get this back on the rails.
Figure it out.
The only thing that you brought up about Houston was your stupid manager question that nobody here who's watching on DraftKings wants to talk about. That's it. That was your only Houston question.
No.
Dusty Baker. What the hell?
You could argue that was more of a Red Sox question.
Yeah, it probably was actually.
So good. Tell me why I should be sitting here believing in Framber Valdez tonight.
You shouldn't. I already said that. Valdez is stale. Good. This game's going over. 8.5 runs, over. They're both going to be out by the 4th inning, over. Bad game for both pitchers.
Let's move on, boys.
So ultimately
oh my God, he's going to ask another Red Sox question.
Yeah, no, it's definitely another Red Sox question. Who are the bats for Houston, Bukes, that you're most, ultimately attracted to playing tonight if you're looking at DFS? We haven't spent any time on DFS. If you're building a lineup for the showdown contest tonight, or I haven't even looked. I'm assuming DraftKings is offering a series contest for the ALCS. Some people like to jump in. It's obviously one of the newer things. It's a lot of fun. Brian Berard, our technical director, confirms, yes, that is available. If people want to look at this from a series long perspective, so not even necessarily just single game 1, a series long perspective, who are the guys that you want to get into your lineup?
You asking me?
Yeah, please.
All right, good. I got some answers for you.
I can't wait.
In those series ones, like for me, I like going for the power bats. Okay. So, and the guys that have like good reverse splits, Yordan Alvarez, perfect example of that. Kyle Tucker, another good example of that. Both really good against righties, both really good against lefties. Those are some of the guys that you want to be getting into your lineup. And then there's other guys like Xander Bogaerts, really good numbers against both sides of the plate. Rafi Devers is maybe somebody I would steer clear from. He's been one of their better hitters, but his numbers against lefties aren't all that great. So that's kind of the mentality you want to have in this one. So like Alvarez, Tucker, Bogaerts, guys like that, guys who can hit both sides of the plate well, and for power in those series long contests that you can do. Those are the guys you want to be focusing on.
Am I allowed to ask you about Rafael Devers? Is that too much?
No, you ask whatever you want. I can choose not to answer. That's the beauty of it.
What about you, LaMarca? Who do you like?
The guy that jumps out to me is Alex Bregman. Why is he so cheap? Why is he so much cheaper than all these other guys? I mean, he's cheaper than Kike Hernandez. He's cheaper than Framber Valdez tonight. Like it makes no sense to me. He's a really good hitter, and he's going to be on the positive side of his splits tonight against Chris Sale, who has really struggled against right-handed bats this season. That's, normally I think one of the things I like to do in these showdown contests is play guys on the wrong side of their splits because the ownership is typically so out of whack. But Sale has limited lefties to a 149 WOBA this season. Granted, not a huge sample size. We're talking about 9 innings, but it makes sense that Chris Sale would be nasty against left-handed batters. So I feel like I'm loading up on the Houston right-handed bats tonight, starting with Bregman at his price tag. But, Carlos Correa, he's 8K tonight. You've got Jose Altuve. He's not so much cheap, but you can't go wrong with Jose Altuve. All the right-handed bats for the Astros. They're going to win this game for them.
So you're more honed in on obviously the single game, just looking at tonight.
Yeah. Sorry.
Series long outlook.
Series long, you just kind of play the best players. How about that?
Dynamite analysis.
He's not wrong.
Would you ever, I feel like I know the answer to this question before I even ask it, but would you ever, if you're looking at the series long contest, be inclined to incorporate a pitcher, or is it just all bats because at least you know that they're day in, day out, barring an injury, going to be there for you?
It's got to be all bats, just because if you only have one chance, realistic, maybe what the floor is one start, right? Because like, what if there's a sweep or whatnot? Okay, so you're better off going with the bats who are going to get multiple opportunities or whatnot. Like here's the thing: the pitchers will be a lot less owned because of the exact reason that I'm giving out. So there's your advantage. But if you're trying to play it safe, then you're just sticking with the bats.
I would probably remove the starting pitchers from my player pool, but I think I would be okay with including a reliever here and there. If you think that a guy can make, 4 or 5 appearances in a 7-game series,
like a closer,
or just a bullpen guy.
House.
I don't think you get points for saves at this point. So, especially if you think a guy can go multiple innings out of the pen multiple times. I don't hate using some relievers because you can't just load up on all the stud bats, right? You're going to run out of salary too quickly. And, would you rather play a Martin Maldonado at 4K or a reliever that you think, can pitch 4 or 5 times in the series? I think I would rather go with the reliever.
Who is your LaMarca and Bukes? You can go next. Who is the highest floor bat, do you think? Like is Altuve, for instance, the safest guy? Obviously
he is in my book,
far from the cheapest, but is he the safest guy you could put in your lineup?
Yeah, especially if we're talking about this, full series contest. Altuve is going to hit leadoff in every game. That means he's going to get the most at bats, or at least no one will have more at bats than Altuve on the Astros. I feel confident in saying that. So, or plate appearances, I guess, if you want to get technical about it. But yes, Altuve for me, safest floor play. Like the Red Sox, I don't feel as good about Kike as their leadoff hitter. I know he just had a huge series, but Jose Altuve has been doing this for the better part of a decade now.
And with Hernandez, what he just did in that divisional series is not really indicative of the type of hitter that he is. What Altuve does is the type of hitter he is. So like what Hernandez just did in that last series, that's something you could maybe see out of Altuve normally. What Kike Hernandez just went through was a hot streak, not what he's normally not a hitter of what he usually does.
Got some pretty good postseason numbers.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. That's not homerism. I'm looking at the stats. And most of those stats are when he was with the Dodgers. Okay.
That's what I was just going to say.
He's a fine player. Fine player. He's not Jose Altuve.
No, of course he's not Jose Altuve. I'm not making that comparison. I'm talking about just in general, if you could make the argument to play him. What about how is Bregman priced too cheap? Ultimately,
I mean, I made the case that yes, I think he is. Not the greatest year for Bregman overall, but especially on this slate. Like I like him more on the 1-game slate than I do on the full series contest because good season, bad season, like whatever, it doesn't matter. The dude breaks against lefties. Mm-hmm. And
like consistently over like a 300 isolated power when he's healthy against lefties.
So like I am very much interested in him at his current price tag against Sale. For that reason, I do think he'll be one of the highest owned batters on the slate, but
should be.
That's because he's one of the best players on the slate. So maybe if you want to get weird, you fade him in the full series contest, because there's going to be more matchups against right-handed bats at that point, and he will be a high. I don't know. This is why this is a cool format, because these are the kind of questions you have to ask yourself.
Do you have a favorite value play? Is it Bregman, or are you looking even deeper down the line?
You're going to need to go with someone cheaper, be it a relief pitcher or one of these, like cheap bats. I'll throw this back to you guys. Let's say this does go 7. How many games does Vasquez catch? Does he catch?
Well, I was just going to say, like Vasquez and McCormick are the guys I'd be looking at.
Yeah, I just don't know if McCormick is going to play every game, and same thing for Christian Vasquez. You guys, there's a weird infatuation with Kevin Plawecki in Boston, I know.
Well, Plawecki will catch, who is it, Evaldi?
Evaldi.
Yeah, so Plawecki will catch Evaldi, but then, like, even Cora said it recently, like the second Evaldi's out of the game, Plawecki's out of the game, and Vasquez is coming in. So to answer your question, LaMarca, I think Vasquez is playing as much as humanly possible.
Okay. I think a reliever is where I would be looking from a value standpoint. Try and find one of these 4K min priced relievers that you think can pitch on multiple days, be it on the Red Sox side, on the Astros side. Like, it doesn't matter. Just find a reliever, hopefully one with some strikeout upside, and hope for the best. It's a little bit of a risky strategy, but that's how you win these things, folks.
Ukes, same question. Value.
I mean, just sticking with tonight, Michael Brantley at 6,400. Granted, he's not great against lefties, but he's going to get a better match. I don't think Sale's going to go deep into this game. So hitting second, what am I sacrificing? Maybe 2 at bats on a normal basis. If you told me on a showdown slate, I'm going to get a guy who has really good power and really good numbers against righties at 6,400 batting second, you would eat that up all day. But people are going to stay away from him because of the left on left, despite him batting second. So Brantley at 6,400, who's got massive power numbers against righties, that's probably one of the better plays here, especially if Sale's out of this one early, like I think it'll be.
Let's go to the other side. I know this is the only game that is going on tonight, but obviously you can't help but look back before looking ahead as far as the NLCS goes and the way things ended in the division series last night. Giants ended up losing. It was 2-1, game 5, series went the distance. Two of the greatest teams in regular season history, and entirely possible if the Dodgers, the defending champs, go on and win again. I'm certain, obviously, a lot of people are going to be hot and heavy on LA to go ahead and repeat, but just barely escaping San Fran 2-1. Controversial check swing call to end that game. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered. The way they were pitching, the way Scherzer was going, might not have mattered anyway. It's still crushing, an absolute gut punch to see a game end that way. If you're a Giants fan, may not sleep for months at this point in time. They got the Braves next, the Dodgers, that is. But
for months,
for months, LaMarca, what'd you think of the way that game ended last night?
Yeah, I get the outrage. You can put me in the camp of not thinking that it would have mattered. I think Scherzer just strikes him out next pitch or 2 pitch later, or he hits a lazy fly ball or something. Like Wilmer Flores against Max Scherzer, give me advantage Scherzer in that one. But yeah, no, it's becoming a problem for baseball. The talk, it seems like, has just become so amplified around the umpires, and like we have to get it rubbed in our face on every pitch because we've got the strike box up there, and it's just crazy how many pitches land in the box that get called a ball and out of the box get called a strike. So I think that I've been saying that we're ready for robot umps for a while now, but again, robot umps I don't think would have helped the check swing thing last night, because it's a non-reviewable call. That one's going to be on a human person, and he made a bad call. So it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I don't think it's not like I'm sitting here saying it's a tragedy that the Dodgers won. Like the Dodgers, I've been saying all year, have more talent amassed than any baseball team I've ever seen. And I recommended taking them once they fell behind 0-1 in the series as underdogs. I recommended buying low on them to win the World Series at that point if you hadn't already done so. And from now until they are eliminated, they are my pick to win the World Series. So I don't care if they fall behind 0-3 against the Braves. Until the Dodgers are dead and buried and the last bit of dirt has been shoveled on them, they are my pick to win the World Series.
Bukes, the Dodgers going to roll the Braves then?
I mean, the way that the odds are set up, people feel that way, but Braves got a good lineup. Like that's been kind of their crutch. And that's even with all the injuries that they endured. Like, don't forget, like this team has Ronald Acuna Jr., who is not going to be part of the playoffs. This team has a lot of good outfielders that were injured, and they still were able to make it as far as they did. Now their rotation is probably the weakest of the two. I should take that back. Is the weakest of the two teams going in this series, but this team can hit, and that's going to be, I think, the biggest problem for the Dodgers. Like the Dodgers, I mean, let's be fair. Max Scherzer has not looked good in the playoffs so far. Like he got it done last night, but even in the last 2 starts leading up to the regular season, which was against the Padres and the Rockies, he got hit pretty hard. And then it started after that in the playoffs too, as well. So if you're having a problem with, getting your pitchers in and getting strikeouts and whatnot, the Braves are not the team that you can afford to do that against, because they can hit you 1 through 6 realistically. Like the bottom of their lineup, like everybody's, is nothing, but 1 through 6, they're very, very strong from both sides of the plate. So that's going to be a big problem for them. I think the Dodgers ultimately do take this series, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as people are, and even as the odds are set right now for them to lose.
What's jumping out at you on the DK Sportsbook for this series then?
I mean, really, aside from Gale, I mean, we don't know what the rotation is or anything like that. Right. So I really don't want to go too deep into it and steer somebody in a particular location. But if you want to look at the series pricing for this right now, let me see if I can pull this up. Playoff series props. Braves at plus 175. I mean, that's not a bad number at all. It's not like this team. I mean, we're talking about 2 teams who advanced to the championship series. Are the Dodgers going to win this series? Most likely. Are they going to roll over the Braves as minus 210 favorites right now? I don't think it's that far apart. So, I think there is definitely some value of plus 175 for the Braves. Just like I like the value of the Red Sox at plus 130. So I think that's, as it stands right now, I think that's definitely something to consider.
What about you, LaMarca?
I'm taking the Dodgers minus 1.5 games at minus 105. I expect them to get this done before 7, and that's really all that we need to win this bet. If they win in 6, they win. That's all I really care about. Yes, they had struggles at times against Logan Webb, who was magnificent. If you're lamenting the loss of the playoff ace, Logan Webb is your guy. He was fantastic. But I watched the Braves all year. They have a lot of talent. They play well below their talent level. They're not that good. They beat up on a bad division at times this season. And now they have to run into a team that, yes, they were a wild card team, but they won 107 games. They are outclassed. It wouldn't shock me if this is a sweep, but if it's, I think worst case scenario is Dodgers in 6, so I'll grab the minus 1.5 games.
So who's got to step up here on the Atlanta side, Bukes, to make LaMarca take some of that back?
That rotation, really, aside from Max Fried, who's really been plowing down opposing hitters on that rotation. Max Fried has by far been their best pitcher. So really that entire rotation is the one that
Chuck Morton's been good too.
Say it one more time.
Charlie Morton.
Yes, I'm sorry. My mistake. Charlie Morton too. But Fried is really the one that sticks out to me. That's been the guy who's been really, really good in this rotation. I think that if others can follow, then they will absolutely give the Dodgers a run for their money.
Do you guys want to hit a little bit of football before we ultimately get out of here in, 5-7 minutes, whatever it is, or you want to keep going with baseball?
I mean, if we can not talk about, just the Patriots, and yes, I'd love to talk about some football.
Or Matt, don't ask me about any head coaches either.
All right.
No head dumb questions about head coaches.
Did you guys know that Bruce Arena of the New England Revolution is closing? No, not into you. Not for you.
Know.
All right, let's go with some football then. First off, what you think of last night? I know it was not the prettiest of football games, but Tom Brady, he used to play for the Patriots. Bukes 5-1. The Buccaneers up to a 5-1 start after beating the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts did his usual Jalen Hurts things. Ultimately, it wasn't enough there for Philadelphia. Obviously, at what point in time are we looking at Tampa Bay as just the class of the NFL, and no one else is in that same company?
Listen, let's talk about the rest of the week. Okay. Well, something that can be actionable. They can put money on.
Yeah,
they can
good.
bet
We can. I think we can do 2 seconds of reflection as well, and then we can do the actionable content after that.
Okay, Bucks look good.
Great. LaMarca, any big takeaways from last night?
Yeah, takeaway is that Jalen Hurts may not be a good quarterback, but the guy is going to be fine in fantasy. On games when he plays good, you can expect him to get around 20, 25 fantasy points. On games when he plays bad, you can expect him to get around 20 to 25 fantasy points. Like he'll just get there in garbage time if he has to. But the guy is going to score. He scored like over 20 fantasy points in every single start of his career, and it's just going to keep happening. So if you have him, as long as he has his job, just keep firing him up. The guy's going to get you there from a fantasy perspective.
How big an impact is Zach Ertz going to make in Arizona?
Minimal.
Obviously not this weekend. For anyone out there wondering, he's not going to be able to play this weekend. But
that would be cool.
Forward, you don't expect him to do much?
Yeah, they already have so many pass catchers there. Like, to me, any target that goes away from like Rondale Moore and into the hands of Zach Ertz is just poor coaching.
Yep.
As far as go ahead.
Ertz is gonna. I hope Ertz enjoys blocking. That's basically what it's going to come down to.
What stands out for this weekend in terms of let's look at DK Sportsbook before, if we even have time, we'll go to DFS and value plays and that type of thing, because I know some key guys are not going to be factors or not playing this weekend. But on the DK Sportsbook, any lines that excite you in particular, Bukes?
I still want to take that over on the Chiefs and Washington football team at 54.5. Like, I know it's the biggest total on the slate, but you're talking about the two teams that have allowed the most points in the league right now. The Chiefs 32.8 points. The Washington football team just over 31 points. What do you think is going to happen in this game with Patrick Mahomes coming off a loss, even without Tyreek Hill potentially in this game? The Chiefs are going to score. The Washington football team is going to score. Heineke's been a lot better than advertised too as well. 8 passing touchdowns since he took over, and that's even after getting shut out last week against the Saints for throwing a touchdown there. I mean, over 54.5. This has come down 2 points. I'm surprised it's going down, but that actually makes me like it even more. I'll take over 54.5.
LaMarca, there are a lot of big lines here this weekend. I mean, obviously Bukes talked about that one. That's at the top, but then you've got, Chargers, Ravens are at 51. Yes. Patriots and Cowboys are at 50.5. Cardinals, Browns, they're at 49. You got a couple others that are in the upper 40s as well. If you were to identify one game that is going to be the highest scoring game on this slate, if it's not the Chiefs and Washington, who is it?
If it's not the Chiefs in Washington, I think it will be the Chiefs in Washington. But if it's not going to be the Chiefs in Washington, I would say, I guess I'll take the Chargers Ravens side. My initial gut feeling was to say the Cardinals and the Browns, but that total has fallen like a lead balloon this week. I want to say it was 54.5 even, and now it's down to 49. Like, you do not see movement like that on a total. That is drastic movement. So
there you go.
That makes me feel like that game might be a little lower scoring than expected. And I did do some research why. I mean, the Browns have played at the 3rd slowest pace this season. They are a very run-heavy team. Even without Nick Chubb, I would expect that to continue. So if the Browns chew the clock and keep the Cardinals off the field, that's not good for the pace of this game, and maybe that forces towards an under. So that's why I'm eliminating that one. You've given me the arbitrary that I cannot pick the Chiefs and the football team, so I'll take the Chargers and the Ravens.
You assuming that Nick Chubb, or rather Kareem Hunt with Nick Chubb out, does play in that game, by the way? He's technically questionable right now.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a bigger deal if there was any thought that he wasn't going to play. But every game has a questionable player this week, so you're going to have to monitor the news. Just add this one to it.
Yeah,
fair. Our guy Glash is in the chat. Game at just the right time.
Hey, Glash.
Calls you a DraftKings homer. You're a company man, which we appreciate.
Is he talking about me?
He's talking about you.
Look, if it wasn't for the Madden Sims, nobody would know who Glash is. So let's calm down.
Hey, that's the voice of the Connecticut Sun right there.
Right. You're right. Yep. Household
name. You're right. All right. Time to go. That much I know. Thanks to Eamon, our producer, Bry Guy on the 1s through 7s, our technical director. There are more Madden Sims coming your way tonight. None of us will be part of them, but we encourage that you are. Make your lineups if you're out there watching. Join them. Have fun. Madden 22, of course. Bukes, he will be the first one to tell you how busy he is all the time, but I can't wait to see how many videos from this show he posts on social media. For LaMarca and Bukes, I'm Kauf. Go Sox. Talk to you a little bit later.
What a homer.